Hello, everyone. Councilmember Kyle Steele here. I've had a day to decompress since the 8-hour meeting last night. I'm filming this Wednesday night, but I won't auto post it till YouTube until Thursday morning. But I just wanted to get my thoughts out there on last night while I could. During my campaign, I did say I was going to make videos frequently, as I'm sure some of you have been seeing. And some of the videos I said I would make would be on important topics or topics that are of great public interest. And well, a 4-5, basically split vote on the Turnpike certainly qualifies for that. So for those who are unaware of the specifics, the resolution that was voted on last night was specifically about getting additional interchanges, as in 3 more interchanges than the 2 that we are already getting by default for the Turnpike. This was a resolution. This was not a contract. So legally, a resolution means little in the court of law. However, for city staff, a resolution is meant to provide guidance on a particular topic. The city manager said that a resolution is essentially considered marching orders, his words, to guide administrative policy or action. And if this had passed, then that would have eventually maybe had led to a contract that would have been legally binding if it was signed by both the city council and the OTA. So to get right into why I voted against it, first, in my opinion, the resolution contradicted itself. There was language in the resolution about supporting the interchange, which makes sense. That's what we were there to vote on to begin with. However, there was also language in there that stated that we, as in the city council, don't support collaboration with the OTA and don't support their project. And in my opinion, both of these sentences should not be in the same resolution. Now, ironically, if that line about not supporting the OTA or collaborating with them was taken out of the resolution, then just looking at it from a wording standpoint, grammar standpoint, whatever you want to say, there wouldn't be any contradictions in it anymore. Now, then you'd have to go on record as saying, hey, you do support this project, which is maybe what people were hoping to avoid by having in the resolution. But again, in my opinion, it just kind of conflicted each other, and it kind of made the resolution a little wonky to me. In addition, the asks that this resolution was making in return for supporting these interchanges were either not enough or were something that the OTA can't provide. And but before I talk about that a little bit, I just want to kind of get the cat out of the bag is not the right word, but I do want to say that there are a few residents in Ward 6 who have essentially said that they don't support the Turnpike, but since it's happening anyway, if we could get enough concessions out of them, then they do support it. So it's not that they don't have no opinion on it. It's just that they, either they're for or against it, depending on what's being offered. And so I bring that up because what we were offering in this resolution is again, something that was not to a that great a level, in my opinion. Now, the resolution does mention potentially providing land for a fire station. And to be upfront, if this was something that the OTA could deliver on, that would actually be a very interesting thing to consider. I think it would actually be a legitimate conversation to have with residents that would warrant a full town hall of saying, like, hey, this land is worth X amount of money and the OTA is giving it for free. Is this something that we want to try to make a deal over? That being said, even though it's in the resolution, this is one of the things that, from my research, the OTA just can't deliver on. To put it plainly, there's no fire stations around the Turnpike that Norman is looking to build. The immediate to fire stations that our next plan for is Fire Station 10, which is kind of in the Ward 7 area around Highway 9, location kind of TBD. And Fire Station 11, the one that I've been pushing for, is in the Tecumseh and 24th Avenue location, which is, again, it's kind of close to the Turnpike, but it's in an area where the Turnpike doesn't own land, so they can't really give it to us. Everything else in our matrix study, like the moving of fire stations or the renovating of buildings, again, it's not on land that the Turnpike owns. So the fact that we're asking for land in this resolution, again, in a perfect world, that would be nice. That might actually warrant a discussion. But in this case, it's just not something that the OTA can deliver on. Now, there is also mention about offsetting some cost related to public safety. And again, this may be something that's worth exploring. However, in the meeting with the OTA that the city council had a few weeks prior, it was one of our study sessions. Off the top of my head, it was the August 11th one. I basically kind of asked about this because I again, some Ward 6 residents say, like, well, if we can get concessions, let's talk about it. So I was trying to see what the OTA might be willing to offer, and their representative hinted at providing some offsetting on very minor items, and the vibe I got was that the real reimbursement for these fire services isn't through contracts with municipalities. I don't quote me on this, but I believe what the representative said is, maybe we could, but that doesn't mean we should, right? So already kind of hinting that it's something that's not need to be done. But what he did hint at is that you might be able to get reimbursed through third-party insurance companies. Now, if this is the case, if we're having to go through insurance companies regardless of their interchanges, then this isn't a concession. Getting a reimbursement from an insurance company has nothing really to do with the OTA, and so again, isn't really something that is a concession, that would be considered worthwhile in a resolution. Moving on from that, let's talk about the interchanges themselves. So this wasn't a resolution on if Norman wanted interchanges. We're already getting interchanges at Highway 9 for the South Extension and 12th Avenue Northeast in Ward 6 for the East-West Connector. There's also, at the very least, there's going to be another interchange at I-35 and on the west side of town as well. So, with the three that I know about that the state are mandating, this means that what really the resolution was asking is, do we want 3 additional interchanges to bring our total up to 6? So as it stands today, even with Norman City Council rejecting this resolution, Norman is not being bypassed by the Turnpike, and there will still be multiple entrances and exits to this turn point at various points in Norman that the Turnpike runs through. Now, when it comes to arguments for these interchanges, for these 3 additional interchanges, I should say, there are arguments for and against them. Some of the arguments for supporting these interchanges included reducing public safety response times with incidents that are occurring on the Turnpike, not having to pay upfront cost when it comes down to road improvements. Essentially, if the OTA has to widen a road around the interchange, they pay that upfront cost. The city still has to cover the maintenance, but the city could save millions of dollars in that upfront cost for upgrading the road. And another benefit is possibly encouraging economic development in the area down the line around these interchanges. And obviously this economic development, if it happened, it wouldn't be right away. It would be, many, many years from now, most likely. Some of the arguments against these interchanges included environmental reasons. People may just want to protect the watershed or runoff or things of that nature, keeping rural Norman rural and not needing these interchanges because there are already, as I said, there's 3 other interchanges around Norman planned, but at the very least on the east side of town, there was already 2 interchanges that are a few minutes away, drive time, from these interchanges that are being proposed. There is also those who believe that we should be taking a moral stand not to work with the OTA because of what they are doing to homeowners in the area for building this turnpike, especially the south extension. Now, I'm not going to go into details on all of these issues because at the end of the day, that's for each individual person to decide which arguments hold merit, which do not, what issues that the turnpike is causing do I think hold a lot of value versus what do I think hold not that much value at all. And the scales are going to be balanced in different ways for different people. I bring all this up because I represent the views of Ward 6, and I have to fight for what Ward 6 wants to the best of my ability. It is not my job to decide on what you think about items. I view my job as getting you all the available information that I can, letting you come up with your own conclusion, giving me that opinion, and then, once I get all the opinions that I can on a particular topic, then I know what to advocate for on the city council. So for the couple weeks that this was a conversation, and during the election cycle, when I was door knocking and those who asked about it, I brought up the turnpike in general. And again, within the past several weeks, I specifically brought up the interchanges of these turnpikes, kind of gave them, these arguments of, for and against, answered any questions they had to the best of my ability, and just said, hey, here's the information. What do you think about it? Tell me what you think about it, or email me what you think about it. And everyone who emailed me before 4 p.m., I believe, is when I did the cutoff on Tuesday. Yeah, it was about 4 p.m. because that's when I went into the city council for the meeting. Everyone before 4 p.m., whether you were for or against it, and if you were from Ward 6, I responded to you, and I believe I also responded to everyone who also wasn't from Ward 6, basically saying like, hey, thank you for your input, type of thing, just to let people know that their emails were making it through. And in the end, once you compile, like all these emails I was getting, everyone I was talking to, things like that, there were a few people who were for these interchanges. And then there were some who were not against, but there were some who had no opinion. There were some who had no opinion on these interchanges. However, most of the Ward 6 residents I spoke to did not want these interchanges for a variety of reasons, and my vote last night reflected that. Now, since the vote, I have also been getting quite a few emails and messages, and many were from people who just weren't aware that the vote is happening. They probably saw it on the news or something and decided to contact me. In that day since the meeting, we're at about what time is it? I guess we're at about 23 hours since the vote was held, and since the meeting ended. I have received, I believe it's 2 people from Ward 6 specifically who have disagreed with my vote or who were disappointed in my vote. However, the rest of the emails and messages I've been getting from Ward 6 residents have been in support of my decision, which once again, in my opinion, just shows that the majority of people were against this resolution from Ward 6. Now, regardless of whether or not you supported my decision, even if you hate my guts now or think I made the wrong call, I do want to thank you for reaching out to me. Obviously, I can't make everyone happy with every vote, but I want to reiterate for those in Ward 6 who are contacting me, I want you to know your emails are being read. You know, when you message me on Facebook, that is being read and your feedback is being noted. Uh, the Turnpike issue, it's not over yet. It's gonna come back in some form or another, and I'm gonna continue using the feedback that I've gathered from residents of Ward 6 so far, and the residents of Ward 6 who want to contact me and talk about it going forward. So once again, whether you are for or against these interchanges, this project, some other related thing to the OTA and the Turnpike, whether it be service roads or something of that nature, please, please, please don't hesitate to email me. I am reading them. I'm responding to all of them, and your feedback matters because it's from all this feedback that I know how to conduct myself and what to advocate for on the city council. And I'm just going to continue to do that. I that's my promise to everyone in Ward 6. It's my promise on the election. I'll reiterate that promise now. I'm going to represent we the people of Ward 6 and what their views are. So please keep them coming. Don't hesitate to flood my inbox with every little concern or opinion you have on these local issues. Because once again, I am seeing them and I am noting it down. So if you do wish to email me, it can be ward6@normanok.gov. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.